Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of DEI After 5. We are going to continue this conversation around where is DEI right now? For so many, for the last couple of years, there has been this attack on this work. There's been attack on just the industry of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But when you look at it, and at least what I'm seeing out there right now is this resurgence of sorts of diversity, equity, and inclusion work. A lot of the teeth that were coming to attack diversity, equity, and inclusion have started to fade away. And so people are really starting to, all right, we're buckling down. We are committed to this. And so I want to have that conversation today. So today, my guests are Sutton, McCraney, and Lace Flowers of the Flavor Room. And so we're going to talk about what they're seeing in their work, how we can expand this conversation, because the conversation goes well beyond the 50 United States. It is a global conversation. And so I am so excited to have this conversation with them. So Lace and Sutton, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey, Sacha, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So for those who may not know who you are, Sutton, can you tell us a little bit about you all and the Flavor Room?
Yes, well, first of all, Sasha, thank you so much for having both Lace and I here today. We really appreciate your time and to have this conversation on your platform. So, as you said, my name is Sutton McCraney, founder of the Flavor Room, and this is my lovely co-founder, Lace Flowers. The Flavor Room is an invite-only leadership ecosystem for founders, executives, and leaders of color who are building at a higher standard. And our work is really a combination of several things. We sit at the intersection of leadership development, ethical business practices, and system accountability. And recently, we've been focusing heavily on standards. So, not just talking to talk and having conversations, but we want to go deeper when it comes to leadership and equity in business. And I know for your audience, a lot of them are in corporate or retired from corporate. So, the perspective we're bringing today is a little bit different from the business aspect, but there's a lot of overlap when it comes to the conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion, because as business owners, we face similar things. So, really glad to have this conversation with you today.
Absolutely. So I know that you all did some research around
Yes.
this work. So Lace, can you tell us a little bit about the research and what you found?
Yes, the research paper that we decided to write about 7 months ago now, so literally as the Flavor Room was becoming a thing, we wrote a research paper called Is It Legit? Redefining Equity, Leadership and Influence in Online Business. And we wrote it because we kept hearing the same stories from founders and leaders of color that they were navigating spaces that spoke the language of equity and inclusion, but their lived experiences told a different story. And that's also what myself and Sutton had found, which was one of the biggest reasons we created the Flavor Room in the first place. So instead of us just discussing it or complaining about it, we decided to actually document it. So we interviewed founders, executives, business owners, and leaders across industries, both online, in service, and product based businesses, business owners as well. And we had about 24 hours of research interviews with these people. Many of them were high performing professionals who have been navigating leadership for many, many years. And their stories revealed patterns that weren't necessarily being discussed openly. Sutton, would you like to take it from there?
Yes, and before I do, I just want to preface, and I know Sasha, you can probably relate to this as well. We wanted to make sure that when we did our research, that it wasn't anecdotal and that it wasn't just qualitative, right? Not just with stories. So we wanted to couple both the qualitative as well as the quantitative because we knew that as soon as we came out with something, eyeballs were going to be on us specifically for
Yep.
bringing certain things to light, right? So one of the key findings for me, and this is what I honed on with the research, is the illusion of inclusion. So
Mm.
organizations and brands often speak about inclusion publicly, right? It's
Mhm.
been trending for several years. Nobody wants to be on the wrong side of history, so to speak. But the internal systems don't often reflect those values. And according to the RAND Corporation's 2024 study on improving pathways to entrepreneurship, experiences of Black and female small business owners in the e-commerce space, Black and female entrepreneurs in e-commerce, as an example, continue to face systemic gaps in financing, mentorship, institutional support, even within spaces widely described as more inclusive than traditional markets.
Absolutely. It doesn't surprise me. It absolutely doesn't surprise me. And you see that in corporate as well, right? So you all were kind of working in that small business space, but I love the illusion of inclusion because that's exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is. And, so many organizations talk about, oh, we're inclusive. We want, our doors are open and we value everyone. But then again, I have those conversations with people and they're just like, no, that's not what we're experiencing. And it's funny. It reminds me of 2020 when all of these organizations, nonprofit, corporate, whatever it was, putting these little black squares up and saying Black Lives Matter. And employees were like, hold my beer. Like, no, that's not what we're experiencing right now. And so that friction is kind of how we got to a lot of this work. But so it's interesting that your research from 7 months ago is still seeing that it's still an illusion. What are some of the things that you are seeing that's working, right? Like what are organizations, what are companies doing that's actually working? And then the flip side of that is, what are they seeing or doing that is that illusion, right? Like they think it's inclusion, but it's really very surface level. So you could answer either one of those.
So I'll take what's working.
Okay.
And Lace, if you want to just piggyback off of, or I'm sorry, what's not working, and then Lace, you can piggyback off of what's working.
Okay.
Well, and I think the tech industry is a great example of this. Involving people who have lived experience. Because especially when we're talking about larger societal issues, it is easy to get caught up in academics and theoretics instead of looking at the people who are in the trenches experiencing these things. So bringing people in, as I said, who not only have expertise, but have the lived experience of what it's like to be marginalized or have difficulties in the workplace. I think that's working very well in the tech sector because you can see in a lot of these tech companies, they are implementing certain things into the culture that circumvent some of the issues we see in the larger corporate context.
Yeah. So what's not working, Lace?
Oh my gosh, how long you got?
I know.
What is not working? I think some of the things that really come to mind to me are the performative allyship, the people that are just speaking the words because they're buzzwords, they're the right things to be saying. So you hear a lot of, everyone's welcome, we love everybody, this is for everyone, doesn't matter what color you are, and they say all the good stuff, but when you start to look deeper, when you go and you look at their actual marketing, you go to their websites, for example, and you see it's all white people, all these images of white people, but you're telling me it's to everyone, yet I'm not seeing that actually reflected in what I'm looking at. So on a subconscious level, that is telling me that this is probably not for me. That the success that you're promising me from whatever it is you're trying to sell me, success doesn't actually look like, because I'm not seeing it. You're saying it, but I'm not seeing it. And there's that gap. So that's what's not working. Saying all the good stuff, but you're not actually backing it up. It's just empty words. And then when you go behind the scenes, me and Sutton have seen this time and time again with people saying all the right things. Oh, I'm inclusive, Black people have been some of the best people I've had on my team and all the good stuff. And I stepped away from X, Y, and Z because, of the inclusion issues and I wasn't happy with it and yada yada. But then when you go and speak to these people and say, hey, I saw what you said, I'd love to have a conversation around that, then it's crickets.
Yeah.
They don't even acknowledge that you spoke to them or that you DM them, and it's like, okay, so on the face of it, you're saying all the good stuff, but behind the scenes is not matching up. So these are some of the things that we really noticed that aren't working. It's a lot of talking and no action.
I wanted to add one more.
All over the place.
Sasha, can I add one more?
Yes, go for it.
I'm sorry. It just made me think of it when Lace was speaking as far as what's not working, because we actually talked to an executive, I think it was earlier this week, Lace, or last week, and she is in a position where she's the only one in her position in the entire state. And the kind of work that she does, there is a lot of interaction with the urban community. And her white counterparts, when she's asking for things, advocating for these urban demographics, it's met on deaf ears because they don't understand the nuances and the different, layers that exist there. So I think that falls into this conversation as well. Even sometimes you may have employers that mean well, but because there is not something in place that's saying we need to look 360 with this beyond just words, then it creates that disconnect and that gap.
Yeah. What is coming to my mind as you all are talking, two things. One is the superficial stuff has to go. Like the checking of the box, inclusion, that's no more. And I think we're at a point where even if we're in this DEI 2.0 or 3.0 at this point, that the same stuff that was allowed to happen before is not going to be allowed to happen now, because that's kind of how we got to this place, right? It was easy to dismantle. It was easy to just uncheck the box that was checked. And so I think, that what Lacey was saying around inclusion is something very similar to what I talk about when I am with companies and organizations and talk about culture. It's not what's written on the cafeteria wall. It's what people experience every single day, right? And so the question I always ask is, well, what does that look like every day? What should people experience when they say that you believe in inclusion? What does that look like? And even asking that question forces people, they try to come up with, the script to respond. And I'm like, let me start talking to people. So exactly what y'all are doing, right? What are people experiencing? Because if there's friction there, that's part of the problem. The other piece, Sutton, when you were talking it reminded me. So one of the other hats that I wear is I work with a nonprofit. I work with an organization that's working with local nonprofits. And one of the things we're doing with them right now is like, who's on your board of directors? And so many people have their friends and family and, all of that. And we're trying to get them past that. But part of them is like, who are you serving? Do you have people that have been through what your organization is trying to solve? And so that way, like, you are actually dealing with some of the issues versus this altruistic, savior complex that so many nonprofit organizations have and go through, right? Like good intentions, but if the impact means nothing because you're just throwing money or whatever at a problem without getting to the root of the problem or understanding what the true issues are, then are you really doing the work? And so when I was listening to both of you, and it just really made me think that this next iteration is about deepening the work. It is not about, we're doing this because we want to look good. Let's take that off the table. We're doing this because we actually want to have impact. We want to solve problems. We want to create access. We want to increase opportunity, like whatever it is, and do so in a way that it is making systemic changes. Now, the question that I want to ask, because I know you all do systems work as well. A lot of the pushback that we're seeing is because they don't want the system to change. The system works for them. right? And so if the system works for them, then let's keep it superficial because we're benefiting from this anyway. And if we change the system, then we're going to lose out, right? So that gets to the heart of the work, right? How do you shift that? So in organizations, are you seeing people fighting that systemic change, or are they open to kind of what you all are recommending to them? So Lace, I'll go to you on that one.
Wow, this is a super deep question, and from what I've experienced so far, not enough people are open. Trying to get people to hear what we're saying or to even care about some of this stuff has been incredibly hard. So we're really grateful that we can have this conversation with you, because that's what it all comes down to, that care, that wanting to have an impact, that wanting to do something about this stuff. And unfortunately, there's simply not enough people that want to do something about this. And I think it goes back to what you're saying with, oh, people are like, well, we're going to miss out. This has been working for us. We don't want to change it. So yeah, it's been really interesting to navigate, and certainly have seen it in the work that I do with systems and hidden systems as well. So we'll probably touch on that a bit more, but Sutton, feel free to jump in before we go a little further down this rabbit hole.
Absolutely. What Lace said, and we have had a lot of pushback, with building the flavor room and the things that we were doing, even from, people of color who are benefiting from the status quo, that we should just be quiet and why are you doing this? Everything's fine. And I wanted to circle back, Sacha, to what you mentioned about, I forgot the word you used exactly, but when it comes to these nonprofits, as far as having the look, right? The aesthetics, the ops, here for the photos, right? But it comes down to that performative leadership, and that's something else we touched on in our research, because we're seeing this a lot, even on the global stage, where people who are in positions of power are talking a good game, giving us all the sweet words, but those values are very different.
Yeah.
And we cited a 2022 research paper that was discussing the gap between passion and positive systemic impact. So meaning, in order for leadership to go beyond just mere performance, there has to be some structural conditions in place to create accountability. And this is something that we're seeing in corporate spaces as well. Easy to check a box and keep it surface level, but there has to be some kind of consequence.
Yeah, that's the piece. I mean, I think accountability is such a four-letter word, right? For so many people, in that, oh my gosh, I don't want to hold someone accountable. And in the work that I do around psychological safety, I'm like, okay, first of all, accountability doesn't always have to be punitive. Like, so let's wrap our brain around that piece of it. What could accountability look like in a very positive, meaningful way, where it's an opportunity to grow versus something that's punitive? And so US culture, I will say, is definitely in this accountability equals punitive mindset. It's very black and white. It's very, you either did it or you didn't do it. There's no gray area there. And so when we talk about leadership accountability, or even in that nonprofit space accountability, the other piece of that I think we fail to realize or recognize is also there's a level of harm that comes with that. And so how do you atone for that harm? How do you repair that harm? Especially when you don't hold the person that's caused the harm accountable, right? That almost like doubles down on the harm for someone that may be marginalized in some way, shape, or form. And so it's just, as you all are talking and I'm thinking through this, what really needs to happen, and I've said this on a couple of other episodes, and people are just like, Sacha, okay, we had to burn it down. Like, I really feel like it's one of these Phoenix moments where it's like, okay, from the ashes comes this Phoenix that will be bigger and better and brighter. But to your point, Sutton, there's so many people that are in this work that it benefits them, and they see the value because it's good for them. And like, no, let's not break this down because it works in some ways. But is it working for everyone? And is it working in a way that levels the playing fields in the way that they should be leveled? And I think that's the piece that we are seeing right now is this, but we don't want the playing field leveled. So my brain is just going. So if that's kind of where my
I love it. I love it. And
too.
you're in good company here. I'm all about burning it down and other things. And, you know, I don't know if you know this, Sasha, but I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force.
You did mention, yeah.
And so, you know, that brings up a whole other conversation about DEI that we just don't have time for. But there's this element of sacrifice. And so when we're talking about, we'll just zoom in and talk about the US specifically, especially now there's a lot of talk about what we're talking about here, DEI, as well as other aspects of society when it comes to social justice. And the thing that always comes up in my mind is sacrifice. So how much are we willing to sacrifice to say that we actually adhere to the values that we say that we have? Because at the end of the day, we are collective, globally and also nationally.
Yeah.
That means there is going to be something that someone has to give. And for far too long, it has been those without that have given.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people have to draw that line in the sand. What are you willing to give up to say that these altruistic, existential, values that you claim to have, put your money and who you are to the forefront?
Yeah. That's what I talk about. Like, I rarely, and again, I say this on the show all the time, I'm not a fan of the word ally because people think it's a noun, right? And I'm like, no, it's a verb. Like, it is something that is an action. And again, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice on behalf of somebody that may not have the privilege that you have, right? And so when you start putting it in that way, it causes people to kind of step back like, oh no, I just want to be a cheerleader for them. I don't necessarily want to sacrifice anything or put myself in harm's way for someone else. And so I love the fact that you're talking about it in this way of, in these spaces, when we're really talking about these systems, what are you willing to sacrifice in order for it to be more equitable, for it to be a more even playing field for everyone? And I think if organizations looked at it that way, there's some tough conversations that will be had, because then they'll realize what is superficial and what is not.
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead, Lace.
No, go for it. I will chime in after.
Well, so again, when it comes to, these corporations and organizations, then that accountability piece, because we know at the end of the day, money talks.
Yeah.
So that is what gets things moving when those consequences equate to quotas, financial quotas not being met for the quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a guest on not too long ago when we talked about, if you treated this work like you treat the finance department, it would operate very differently, right? You're not going to just get rid of your finance department.
Yeah.
And it's,
you get rid of the things that aren't necessary, that aren't a priority to the bottom dollar.
Right.
Freudian slip, the bottom line. So,
right.
Yeah.
But finance it also touches every single part of the business. Like, it is integrated, the systems that are in place, like, if you were to think about it as that integral to your business, it would shift all of this.
Well, you could argue that it is.
True. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we could go on for days and days. Oh my gosh. My brain is just all over the place. So if people wanted to follow you all in the work that you do or contact you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Go ahead and visit our website, www.theflavor.biz, where you can read the entire research paper. And it's set up in a way where you can take it in little snippets and sound bites, or you can read it all in full. And you also be able to get information on the solution that we're bringing. So we're not just here talking about the issues. We are here literally burning it down and bringing something from those ashes that you spoke about. You know, that phoenix is legit certification for impact driven business. So if you're interested in learning more about this is the DNA. This is how you build that structure and that accountability into your business, regardless of what it is, whether it's online, whether it's corporate, whether it's somewhere in between. That is the DNA, that is the structure that we're bringing. So come and check it all out. We'd love to connect with you there.
Thank you. Love it. Any final thoughts before we head out? Because my brain, like I said, is going in a million different places right now.
Yes, Sasha, I just want to thank you again for having us on your platform. Half hour is not long enough. It really isn't. There are so many rabbit holes that we could have gone down, and just seeing your brilliant mind work, bringing these questions, I really enjoyed it. And for anyone listening who is wondering how can you move forward with your organization with these issues, it's time to find your own way. Stop looking for the system to give you solutions to the problem that the system created. Find your own path. And that is how we are going to move forward for our people, humanity as a whole, by finding our own paths.
Amen. Woo. Yes. Okay. I have me do a little praise break. All right. Thank you both. I am so excited. I'm glad we had this conversation. Sutton and Lace, thank you so much. You know, this is the work. And the fact that you all are global in the work that you do speaks volumes to the fact that this work is continuing regardless of what is happening here. So thank you for the work that you do as well. And I'll have to have y'all come back because again, all these rabbit holes, we gotta go back into some of them. So I'm excited.
We'd love that. Love that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you all for tuning into this week's episode. Again, I am, my brain is just going a million miles an hour, but I hope that you are able to walk away with some new ideas, some different ways to think about how you're approaching this work. If you're continuing down the path of building more inclusive workplaces and spaces. And until next time, have a good one. DEI After 5 is produced by the Leon Thomas Group. For more information, go to theleonthomasgroup.com.